Okay, hello there. We have one viewer. Is that you, Dan? Anyhow, with one viewer, I can actually begin. So, yeah, how you doing? Today we are going to have a look at some basics of file management in InstaMAT and also the element graph for a very basic but exciting little atlas or a library or a tool, if you will, of different alphas, and we are going to set conditions as to how to combine them or operate them, and something you can then use in the layering painting project. So that's the plan. Let me know if the audio is okay, if it's loud, not loud, any noise in the background. It should be fine, but you never know. So let me know. All right. So I don't know if anyone's there, but let's just begin, eh? So, uh, I imagine people who are going to watch this already know what InstaMat is. Either way, it's a combination of Substance Painter, Substance Designer, and let's say geometry nodes from Blender. It's actually quite exciting because having all those tools in one place just leads to some pretty amazing possibilities. Um, in that case, in any case, today we are just going to have a look at the designer side of it, the sort of procedural texturing, geometry creation tool. And for that, there is a little bit we need to know about how to manage what InstaMat calls packages and projects, and how it all ties together to a pretty powerful library creation tool where you can have a lot of you know imported assets combined with your own custom-made tools, stuff like that. Uh, so yeah, let me just. This is like when you open Instamat, this is what you get, right? Like there is no project open, no package open. It's just a custom UI, which is good, right? But we want to create more. But first of all, let me just show you what a package is. Currently, I don't have any, so let's just create a new package. You can also do that in File and just create a new package. And it's basically like your container, your master folder for all your projects. Projects are a little. It can be as simple as a little operation that you perform on your mesh. Basically, you can, for example, unwrap it. You import an object, you have Instamat unwrap it for you. Or it can be just it can be a tool that you created in Instamat, like we are going to, that has some functionality that you can later reuse, or it can be a material, whatever, right? Like projects are individual, let's say, building blocks of your final product, right? And so let's just create a new package. Let's call this stream package. Um, yeah, and whenever you have this little asterisk, is it? A little star next to it. It means that it's not safe. So if I click Control S, or if I press Control S, no, it doesn't work. All right, like we can Alt S. Okay, Alt S for packages. We can save it, right? Which leads us to a very useful thing to do, which is setting up your own library. What I mean by that, right? If I cancel this for now and just open the preferences, the first thing you see is this little dialog here, the application. And as you can see, we have two. In my case, anyway, we have two different paths that define where Instamat is looking for uh, its resources for its library. Yeah, there is like the library that InstaMAT ships with, which is already there. It's of course this one where you have all the nodes and all the materials, and I don't know. You can always Google for something. Let's say you can search for InstaMAT icon, right? If I could type, no, no InstaMAT. Let's just say something else. Let's say, I don't know, Rust. Does it? Why doesn't it work? I don't know, but it should work, and normally it works. Maybe because I don't have a project. So let me just create a project quickly. Let's say I'm on Graph. I'll get to this soon, and now we can InstaMAT. All right, as usual, nothing works. But yeah, this usually works. Okay, let me jump back, right? Like we want to set up our own library. What it does is when you specify later on, when you specify in your project what category it belongs to. In my case, I created this DKNS, which is like my nickname, folder where I can save all my little nodes and templates and curves in this case and all that. You can save pretty much whatever. You can save your typefaces that you like to use. I'll show you all of that, right? So we want that, and for that you need to tell InstaMAT where to look, right? And of course that's where you set it up here. You set it up in here. By default, I think it's this one, this user seminar. That's my user here. OneDrive Documents InstaMAT. That's on Windows. I don't know what it's called on Mac, if that works on Mac. Sorry, but you can easily change the path, right? Now, how does that work? Okay, so let's say we created a new project, right? In this case, an element graph. Let's call it a I don't know, what should we call it? Oops, come on, please work. Nothing ever works when you want it to. All right, let's call it my first library project. And we can add something. Let's just add Berlin noise and set it as an output of this little thing. And that's it, right? And so now we want to save it. Control S. And as you can see, I'm already in my custom library folder. I already have some projects saved there. And so I can save it there. And now, if I'm not mistaken, it should... Oh, and we have to do one more thing. We have to specify the category here on the right side. When I say DKNS, let's say stream test, right? Now it should work. It should... here, it updated, right? Once you save it, it should update here. So now InstaMAT knows where to look for your assets, right? And so hi Dan, yeah, hey, it's me, but I didn't see a chat somehow on mobile currently on my way home. Okay, yeah, sure, no problem. Yeah, okay. Chatting is not that important right now. Anyway, but anyway, if anyone has any questions, of course, any suggestions, any corrections, I'm always happy to go back, explain, or discuss, or correct myself. All of that. All right, so this is setting up the library. Again, to reiterate, you basically have to go to your preferences. You have to create a folder, a special folder, or use the custom one, also the original one from InstaMAT, and basically set the path here, and then you create a project, save it into that folder, set up the category. If you don't, it's not going to show, right? You have to set up the category. Also, if I were you, I would avoid using one of those categories that are already there, right? I had some troubles with it. Something wasn't showing and all that. I would prefer, if I were you, creating your own folder and just create your own sort of structure that makes sense to you. Of course, we are also going to talk about how to prepare a project for someone else, right? Let's say you want to create some, I don't know, some I don't know, a set of materials, for example, that you want other artists to use. You can do that, but then again, it's pretty important to sort of set everything up correctly and make it user-friendly. So we are going to talk about that a bit later. Anyhow, that's the basics of projects, saving them as a resource for your other projects, for your libraries. Now, that's pretty cool because, for example, if I open my template here, I would like to open, oh, here, yeah, open package. We can open the package. We don't have to save this one. I'm not that interested in it. Okay, so this is a simple setup for something that I can reuse over many projects, right? When you click the create project here, new project, you select element graph, and it will give you the templates here, right? But you can also create your custom one, your own, and use that for your projects. So basically, what it will do, it will automatically create all these nodes for you. Yeah. So that's very useful because it can get really tedious to set this up every time. If you have a specific need, let's say you're like in my case, you're going to make an alpha stamp. You probably don't need to make sort of a fully fledged PBR material. All you need are really these inputs, or sorry, these outputs with one input, right? That's where the alpha is going to come from. You may want to blur it a little bit. You may want to edit the histogram a little bit, or I don't know, whatever you need, right? You can do this. You can then, and that's the other part of this, you can then expose these parameters, I think that's the pronunciation, at least in, in the US, parameters. You can expose these parameters for someone else, right? For someone who wants to use it, let's say in layering. And that's what we are going to do today. Basically creating a few alphas and then setting up these parameters and setting them up for export into, let's say, layering projects where people can maybe choose which brush or which element to use and just stick it on to their mesh. All right, I guess I can take a break, calm down a little bit. And so if there's anyone listening, has any questions, please don't hesitate to ask them now. Okay, guess I can move on. So this is an example of how that works, right? I used the template, so it imported all of these nodes for me automatically. And then on the left, I basically created some simple shapes, very simple shapes. I don't know how well it shows on stream, but it's just a circle, and I sort of blended it together with other stuff. And as a result, we get a little alpha step that we can then use in layering and put it on my mesh if I wanted to. Now, this one is not yet fully optimized. I haven't really exposed that many parameters. I can't say this word, and I haven't really optimized it either because it's not as customizable as it can be, right? Uh, oh yeah, thanks, Dan. It's just a simple thing, you know. Um, yeah, for example, I have all these little variants that come together. But I haven't really created any way for the user to choose which shape they want, whether they want these indents, for example, or whatever we should call them, these like I don't know, you know what I mean, right? Like these holes, or whether they want the InstaMAT symbol in the middle, or do they want some triangle instead, or something like that, yeah? And so allow me to show what it could look like when it's more optimized. And I also made some triangular ones. And as you can see, I have set up a lot of menus here, which will allow me to sort of scroll through them. By the way, if you hold Control and scroll your middle mouse above a menu, it will scroll through the menu, right? Let me just make it a bit brighter so it comes across the stream well, right? So I can just scroll through all the little shapes I have, and it's just the beginning, right? I can have all these, but let's just use something where it's going to show, let's say this one. I've also exposed the settings for the bevel, for example, right? So I can bevel it more, I can bevel it less. And all of these attributes, let's say, all of these properties are going to be available to the user, and he doesn't have to go back into this project, right? He or she doesn't have to go back, find my, the node that's responsible for beveling. I don't even know where it is anymore. I think it's this one, right? Yeah, this is where I'm like beveling the main shape, and so that makes it very easy to create tools again, right? It's really up to you how you organize your graph. I would say it requires a bit of planning. Anyone who has ever done any procedural generation knows that it's basically visual coding, and for that you need to create sort of at least like a structure, like what do I want to blend, and when exactly do I want to do it? Do I want to bevel the whole shape after I subtracted all the parts? In my case, that's probably not a good idea because it will give you a different shape. So I had to go and find the perfect spot for that. And you also want to, and that's of course based on experience, you want to optimize a little bit, right? Like this is a very simple thing. It doesn't really take a lot of processing power, but yeah, if you for example do something that has to like process hundreds of thousands of polygons, and you just do it like for every shape twice or something like that, yeah, instead of like doing the whole thing and only once, you want to optimize, right? So it took me a while to figure out how to sort of structure my project so that it's more efficient. I'm not saying this is perfect, but it's a bit more efficient. And also, there is this extremely powerful um, sort of tool, which is the enum family of nodes. Well, what it does is, let me open one. So here at the bottom, you specify what InstaMAT calls the cases. Basically, if you're familiar with, let's say, geometry nodes in Blender, and you know how the switch node works, right? This is it, right? This is the switch menu node, in fact, and so you specify different cases, different occurrences, different inputs, and based on this case input, you can switch between them, right? And this is extremely powerful. It's basically a menu creation tool. All right. In this case, I'm selecting images by this number I created, but you can type in anything, right? Like let's say instead of 0, I would type in, let's use a corn, right? And this could be, I don't know, Nurgle, and this could be Zinch. That's how you. No, that's not. I don't. Zinch. And what's the last one? Slanesh. Yeah, we can have chaos gods here, and you see that's it changes the name, and then in this menu here, it will also give you a choice between Korn, Nurgle, Slanesh, Zinj. So you can use that. It's very powerful in my opinion. So you specify the cases, you name them, then you expose this parameter. I can show you how to do that. Basically, you drag this you say expose as graph input. If you want the user to be able to modify this, you say graph input. If you expose it as a local variable, it will only be for you, for the creator of the node or of the graph, basically, right? It's just going to be a local variable that you can use quickly, you can access quickly and on multiple places, which can be useful in some cases. In this case, I want my users to be able to change the image, of course, the basic input. So we do that, and it created a new menu here because I deleted my old one, and it should have all the options I specified before. So again, we have cases. Let me just rename my chaos gods back into numbers. In fact, I could just undo all of this, probably better, yeah. And we feed in the images into every case, right? In this case, I am using case number 5, which is this little input here, right? And I'm having it as one of the options that people can choose from. Does that make sense? Any questions? InstaMAT is not the author, I am. All right, so we learned how to expose parameters to the user. We learned about the enum select image in this case. There's another enum node, select node, and that's the conditional select. This really works as a switch in Blender. You set up a condition, a Boolean condition, and you have a true case and a false case, and based on the switch, you can sort of, for example, in my case, I have this add base input. When I click it, it creates a little triangle at the bottom of my alpha stamp. I'm actually not sure if this is useful for alphas. I was just experimenting. Like adding another like whole level of geometry will create weird things when you apply it as an alpha stamp as a brush. But why not? So that's how I created this. So how does that work? Well, let's click spacebar to or let's press spacebar to find a node. In this case, it's going to be conditional, and you can see you have a whole family of conditional selects. In this case, we want select image. Let's set it to grayscale because we are working in grayscale. And I don't know, let's say we want or actually let's use some color. Why not? Boom. Let's say we want solid color nodes. True. And that's going to be, I don't know, like, is it still grayscale? Why is it grayscale? It's not supposed to be grayscale. Value? Yeah. Saturation? Okay, now we are talking. Okay, we can turn off linear for now. Let's just get some nice red or orange. Let's get another one. And let's get like a blue. Yeah, and let's expose this little thing. Let's expose it as graph input. Boom. Sure. Whatever. I'm trying not to type. Yeah, it's graph input. Now it created a new condition. We can rename this to, I don't know, blue versus orange. Yeah, or maybe it's a boolean, so let's say orange. So if this is true, we are going to get orange. If this is not true, we are going to get blue. Orange, blue, orange, blue. Yeah, simple switch. Nothing too complicated there. We could then work with this some more. do a lot of stuff with it. Sorry, Dan. So you could set up the colors in the conditional. Yeah, yeah, of course, of course. I think this is a bit more clean in a way. Of course, it takes a bit more setup, but instead of like, deleting the images, and then in this case we would have to disconnect it, and here we would have to set up the colors, right? Like I think this is like more apparent while working. So I actually like to have these like, mm, let's say bottom level nodes there as well, because when I see something like this, I would have to click it and like think about what it is again, right? But this way, when I see the two colors reading into conditional select image, it just sort of makes it obvious to me. But it's just a personal preference. On the other hand, right, for let's say for like canvas management, right, canvas space management, it's obviously better to just use the node. It's more compact. Just a personal preference in my case. Okay, so that's an example of how to use sort of a condition. The conditions can be pretty complex. There is a whole Boolean math operator set. Let's just say Boolean. Um, do we have or maybe it's just called and? Yeah, this relational stuff. It's basically your Boolean operations like and, or, not, what have you. It's all there. So again, if you know a little bit of like basic logic operation, logical operators, then or logic operator, I guess, operators, then you can create like whole conditional trees with this. You can do this to vectors. You can do this to floats, to rational numbers, all of that. You can switch between images. You can switch between meshes. It's all there, right? So again, it's really up to you on what you need, what you want to achieve. All right. This was a bit of a gotcha. By the way, thanks Dan for helping me out with this, because I couldn't really figure out how to do this. It's not self-evident, I would say, and the documentation on this node is just like I don't even know what strongly typed enum value supposed to mean. Like I'm not a coder myself, and this was cryptic at best. And since you have to use a couple of nodes here, a chain of nodes, I would like it to be maybe better documented. Anyway, what this does is it switches between blending modes on this blend node, right? There are so many of them. There are maybe, I don't know, 20, 30 of them. But I only wanted 2 of them or 3 of them, and I wanted the user to only have access to those that I specified. But for that, by the way, what this does, I can also add a central symbol, which I have here, I think. And that central symbol, oops, here, yeah, a central symbol. I added some more. So what it does is this, right? And I wanted it to either be subtracted, or I wanted it to be added, right? So subtract, add, or screen is just better for this kind of alpha stand, right? So I couldn't figure it out. So anyway, how that works, right? You need this enum converter, and then you need a select that specifies cases based on numbers, based on integers. So again, how that works? When you create an enum converter, right? It gives you this red socket, which I have no idea what it means, right? And I don't know which data type that is. And it gives you a value. Like, again, not very self-evident. So then you create this enum select. I should just delete it. Oh, maybe we create a enum select unit integer, unit integer, unit integer. Boom, connected. And here we can specify a number. The number is the position of the blending mode you have in this menu. So it starts at 1 uh, with average, so it's 0, 1. So let's say we wanted to find multiply, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this one would be 5, not 50, 5, 5. We call it, the case should be multiply. And the next one will be, I don't know, overlay. Yeah. And so overlay is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Hopefully I counted correctly, which is, this is a bit not great. 14. And then we could also expose this, right? We could expose this. Let's just do it as a local variable for now. And so here I can scroll in local variables, and it should, in theory, be switching this. And that's this is the funny part. Once you connect it, it changes this data type. And so that's why I rejected using this node in the first place, right? Like when I was looking for the node, I knew what I wanted to achieve, but the red socket sort of threw me off. So if we could maybe do something about this internally, please, Dan, it would be nice. But again, it's not that big of a deal. Once you know how to do it, you know how to do it, of course. That's how it is with these tools. Anyway, so now we can switch between multiply and overlay, multiply, overlay. I don't know why we would want to do that, because these blending modes are not quite useful for this kind of thing, but it works, right? It just works. Oops, expand. Oh yeah, when you see a node like this, if you press Shift and Spacebar, it will collapse or expand it. And so all these things here are hidden in the node, but you can always access them. So let's just do this and then collapse it. Now, again, I'm going to take a break, a sip of my new delicious tea, and if there are any questions, feel free to ask. You know, I can actually show you how all of this works. So let's just take some other central symbol, something bigger. I don't know. Yeah, for example, a triangle. Next, I'm going to show you how to create these menus. Just a little bit of a break. You can also hover a connection over the expand button. Sorry, what? Sorry, there's your chat is covered. What did you say? Uh-huh. You can hover a connection over expand button. You mean, I think I know what you mean. So let's just say, again, we add Berlin. And if I hover it like this, oh yeah, you can do that. That's a nice tip. That's a nice tip. I'm very much used to, because I have I have wrist issues. I try not to work so much with my right hand, which is holding the mouse, but I try to use a lot of like keyboard shortcuts. First of all, I find it much quicker, and secondly, yeah, it basically avoids pain. It's me avoiding pain. But yeah, you can do that. You can hover over expand. I find it quicker to just click, you know, shift, and you can do that. But yeah, that's definitely possible. Thank you. All right. Yeah, some more tea. Okay. So I have another enum select image. This one sort of it's not finished, as you can see. I have 10 inputs or 10 different images, or at least I would like to have, but I only have 4 right now. These are the 4 sort of central symbols, as I call them. It's basically this shape in the middle. And we can again switch. Sorry. Oh yeah, you know, Dan, like if you like to work with mouse, that's fine. It's really a preference, right? I used to be a mouse guy too, but a couple of years ago I developed some you know, injury in my hands, and since then I have to be very careful. So that's just it, you know, personal preference. But anyway, that's nice about InstaMAT. I think the UI is very well developed. Uh, there are, of course, things I would like to improve or change, but overall, it's a pleasure to work with it. So it's fine. It's fine. It's not too clicky, you know. It's not too clicky. And for me, a good tool is not too clicky or not too mouse dependent in a way, right? Anyhow, like I said, uh, yeah, it's great that we can do both. Mm. All right, so here, as I said, like another list, another menu, this time for the symbol in the middle. Um, and so how does it work? First of all, I would like to talk about these menus here, right? Like imagine a user who comes in, he opens all of this, and there is a wall of like customization options and all these numbers and all that. It can be quite like daunting, intimidating. It's basically like learning what the author had in mind, right? So it's good to, oh yeah, oh yeah, I see you soon. Um, what was I saying? Yes, you probably want to structure this, right? You want to structure this in a sense, in a way that makes sense to the user. So to do that, when you click any of these little exposed parameters and you go here, or you right click on them and say edit the parameter in the variable editor, right? You get this, which is like the metadata, if you like. The important part is this category, right? So I called it central symbol, which creates this menu right here, right? And then you can just have all the inputs you need or all the controls you need fall into that category. So let's create a new one, right? Let's grab again Berlin, and we expose. What do we expose here? By the way, you can also go into the inputs, right click, and say expose as input parameter. So we got some levels here. Now we go here, we go into the variable editor. The category will be specified as, I don't know, the emperor. Right? Or maybe just emperor. Looks weird. Okay, now look at this. We go back here and we should have the category emperor. So now we have an emperor and we can add a lot of controls to the emperor, right? So I don't know, maybe we want to expose the scale as well. Again, we have to set up the category, or, and this is easier, you don't have to do it again. You just have to find it here and drag and drop it into your new menu, and you can collapse that, right? So uh, this is nice because, for example, if I don't want to add the center symbol, right? Uh, I can just have this collapsed, this one turned off, and only when the user wishes to, you know, add the central part, he can click on that, and then he can open the menu and do whatever he needs. So again, I would say this is a really cool way of working, of creating. I wish, for example, that the geometry nodes in Blender had a better way of handling this. They are getting better, much better, but it can be a bit like confusing how all that works. Also, much less polished in terms of UI. All right. By the way, if you see this icon here, it means that the node that we created for it, the parameter doesn't exist anymore. So you can just trash it. Yeah, it was the switch for the red and or the orange and the blue. We don't have that anymore, so we can just trash it. We can also trash this. By the way, to select multiple nodes, you have to hold Shift and drag. Then we can press Delete. right? And now it shows that we don't have this anymore, so trash it, and it also deletes the menu. It's smart like that. So nice, right? Another cool thing you can do, you don't have to limit yourself and the user to just the images or inputs that you have specified yourself, you can also create this blank input. In my case, it's a grayscale image input, and it will show, when you expose it, it will show for the user, and he can use his own center symbol, right? Like let's say he has some other alpha or I don't know, whatever, a logo he wants to use. He can load it into InstaMAT and input it as this image, and it will work. So in my case, I just loaded in the InstaMAT icon and use it as the custom input. So we can scroll down, say custom, and it's going to give me the InstaMAT stuff. Now it's too big, right? So we introduced a transform node, and we exposed the scale and the rotation, right? So it's the symbol scale. I have locked it so it changes in both axes at once, and we can make it smaller, a little bit smaller. And we could also, maybe it's too high, right? It's definitely too high. So for that, I included the levels input, and so I can do this. Something's going on with the blending mode. I wonder what that is. Screen, screen, screen. It should work, right? Yeah, it doesn't make any difference. Screen 13. Is screen 30? Maybe the screen mode is not the best. I have to figure. Oh, maybe it's the bevel acting out actually. Yeah, that might be it. Simple bevel. It's the overall bevel, I guess. Yeah, yeah. It should be like this. Yes. Yeah, so that's why we expose all these parameters to the user, because you never know what's going to happen. Of course, if I were to really polish this, right, I would probably like figure out a way to limit the bevel so that it makes sense, right? But anyway, you have to decide what to put in and what not to put in. So yeah, we can now modify the sort of the height of the displacement by these levels. We can rotate it a little bit, yeah, and all of this would be available to the user in layering, for example. Now, I also included sort of these overrides, if you will, these global overrides at the end of the graph, right? For example, as you know, it's always good practice to blur your displacement maps a little bit, because otherwise you will get artifacts. So if I turn it off, I don't know if it shows on stream much, but you get these lines, right? Because there is a finite amount of geometry, little squares that get displaced. Unless you blur it, it will just go straight up, and you know, these are like anti-aliasing issues. Even if I turn off the anti-aliasing, in this case it doesn't do much, but it can help a little bit. That's why I included it. But I almost always blur my graphs by a little bit, at least when I do this hard surface stuff. So let's just put in 2% again. It helps hide this. You can go higher. The higher you go, of course, the more sort of blurred look you get. But at the same time, it creates these like minor bevels, which I love. Right? It will reflect. It will catch lights. It will show in normals. It creates this feel of like something detailed. So I like to do that. 2-3% is usually enough. Again, depending on like how much geometry you have. This is a high polyplane, right? High polyplane. I don't know how much geometry there actually is, but it's going to be tens of thousands of polygons. All right, so you can also choose to invert the whole thing, which is going to give some weird results in some cases, right? But if that's what you're going for, you got a new shape for free, and you want that, right? Like we want to have as much variation as possible so that the user can quickly create without having to build this from scratch. What else? You know, this should be self-explanatory, right? Like if we use the master, it's just going to sort of shift the whole histogram. I don't want that. If we go with the balance, it's basically like using levels, right? Like you just know how to do how that works. Again, I don't want that. Or you can really play with levels if that's your thing. In fact, like the levels, that's pretty much what there is, right? Like you could just have that, maybe contracts. You don't need the balance and the master, but you know, I exposed all of them. So yeah, that's how we create little tools. Of course, we have to set up the outputs. So in this case, I'm using a mask. So if I turn that off, does that help? No. Maybe I need to disable that altogether. How do I do that? Can I just trash it? Yes. So this is what it would look like without the mask, right? That's the plane and how it gets displaced. But of course we don't want that, right? Like we don't want our brush to have this like unused geometry in there that would get added to your model, for example. So you create a mask. Now this is context sensitive or like semantically sensitive. So if you name it mask, it already knows that this defines the opacity or the transparency. So it hit the stuff I specified. Again, white reveals, black hides. So you want to use the proper input for that. Um, then I also use the height, which is the displacement. Again, if you call it height, it will automatically start displacing. I have a height to normal. I'm deliberating whether to include the format parameter. I guess it's good to have at least like OpenGL and DirectX because I imagine most people will use either like Blender or Unreal Engine, I think. But again, you know, we have all sorts of other specifications, so you can use the one for 3ds Max or for Maya, which unless I'm mistaken, are the same. Again, OpenGL and Blender specifications, I don't know if there is a difference. They have it, that's fine, right? Um, yeah, you can do that. You can also, we could, for example, expose the strength. So let's just have it like this. We could probably do this in the final edits. Let's just call it something sane like normal, strength or intensity. Yeah, and if we look at this image, we can now have fun with this, right? You can sort of sharpen it, make it more intense, less intense, more intense, which might be useful, right? So maybe we leave it in. But I want it at the default 0.22 because that's what I'm used to. Yep, so we have added another part. Now we can delete this. Oh yeah, and the last one, we also want to add the height to AO. Again, we could expose a lot of the parameters. Uh, I haven't figured it out yet what works, what doesn't. But again, we could like specify the fall off, the height, scale, the quality. I would caution anyone to like include everything, right? Like against including everything, because that's like this is already quite a lot, right? Of course, it will give the user much more control over what you're doing or what you had prepared for him, but I wouldn't, right? Like the less the better, in my opinion. Like be minimalist about it. That's my advice. Because like you can test this yourself, right? Like let's say you leave this for a week, you come back, and you have to like read through all of that and like figure out what you meant by it, and you have the advantage of having created it. If you just ship this and give it to someone and say like, these are all the things you can use, I guarantee he will be confused, right? Even if you have like perfect naming conventions and all that, like it's better to just keep it simple. Create menus, right? Speaking of which, I have this base height uh, parameter. I would like to find that. Where is that? Can I? Can I like highlight it somehow? No, we have to show it in variable. Anyway, I just want to create a new category, and that's going to be the base. What should we call? Base plate, maybe. Boom. And that created a new menu, which we can have hidden, right? There's only one property, but that's fine, right? I can always just have it turned off, and if the user wants it, he can always find it. We should also probably, I don't know if I should be doing that by by alphabet or like alphabetically, or just like you know, from the bottom to top. I haven't decided yet, but there should be some logic, right? Because let's say you want to sell 5, 10 of these, it should be the same so that the person knows how you think and how you set up your tools. All right, so that's the basics. Again, I'm going to take a break, and if there is something you would like me to show or explain again or deeper, you can of course ask me. And I would like to create just a simple square alpha from scratch, maybe like 4 of them, and like set this whole thing up from scratch so that you can see how to go about it. Like alpha creation, like it's one of the simplest things you could be doing. It's really like just simple shapes. In this case, like hard surface stuff. Yeah, you could of course create alphas for sculpting, for example, right? Like you could use I don't know, organic cracks. Uh, is that what it's called? Cracks? Crack simple, crack simple, crack simple, organic. Yeah, for example, this, right? Let's say, what would that be good for? I don't know, like some alien skin, right? You can create an alpha out of it. You could like add some vignette, um, see how it displaces the mesh here, and then you could export it as just a grayscale PNG, for example, and import it into Blender or ZBrush or something, and just use that as your alpha. There are really like no limits to that. Um, so yeah, but the hard surface alphas, which is what I like, they're very simple. It's just simple shapes. There are like 3 or 4 blending modes that you need, right? Like you need maybe maximum, minimum, add, subtract. I don't even know if that's like maybe screen, multiply, right? Like only those basics, and you can get some nice results really fast. And like it's much better than say modeling it, right? Like I have a file in Blender. I could actually show you that. Let me just open this really quick. Oops. Um, mhm. Okay, here we go. Right, like I was just like doodling and created a lot of alphas, but like of course you get the modeling control. It's not a science distance field or like a grayscale displacement map. But like you have to. Sometimes it's easier to model this stuff. Sometimes it's not. You could, of course, take all these meshes, import them as FBXs, for example, into InstaMAT, and then you can use a very sexy node called mesh render depth. Yep, that's the one. Which and set it up. You would have to set it up into orthographic, and so that it looks like straight down without any perspective. And you could then sort of have the mesh in and just render it, and it will give you a grayscale map, right? But it doesn't give you the customization option of like having a sign distance field kind of modeler. So this is definitely possible. You could do this for trim sheets as well, right? Like we could add a plane. I don't know. Let's add a plane. Whoops. Come on. It's like switching between tools, and they have. Oh my god. Oh my god. Not alt, but yeah. All right. Let's add a I don't know, plane. let's switch it into edit mode, like extrude it. Let's flip the normals. Let's do this, and we can maybe go into box cutter, which is a paid add-on in Blender. Let's use box. We could, cut it up like we want. That's not what I wanted to do. It's definitely not what I wanted to do. Come on. Switching between programs. I'm always like, I have to get used to it again. What was I going to do? Oh yeah, box cutter. We would like to do slashing instead. Where's the here? Boom, boom, boom. Right, and we could like bevel these, for example, a little bit. Yeah, we could add details. Then we can. Oh my god, I keep pressing all the wrong buttons. Then we can export it into InstaMAT, render depth, and then you have a trim sheet, right? Which is again quite powerful. You can do that, or you can do these simple shapes or more complex shapes and add like materials to it, of course, in InstaMAT, right? And I think Roman Rebier, if I'm pronouncing this correctly, my French is a bit, out of date, I would say. So Robin actually created a tool, and it's called Trim Sheet Toolkit. I'm sure you can find it on Discord on his ArtStation, and it will sort of help you with the process of creating trim sheets. It's pretty cool. So that's a real expert at creating tools in InstaMAT. I would definitely check it out. You can see how he works, how he thinks about it. Anyway, so you can render the depth as well. So there are advantages and disadvantages to both. Some things are going to be easier to create in your DCC, like Blender or Maya. Another one might be easier to create uh, in this manner, in this like procedural manner. Okay, let me just quit. Nope. Okay, so let's create a new project. This time it's going to be like square alphas. So let's create a new project. And here we choose element graph. And we should have the template somewhere. Why isn't it there? I should have a... Alright, let me see what went wrong. I would like to go to my library. We have these templates, element templates here. We click on that. We probably save it. We should rename this like element G maybe. Okay, so it's definitely updated. We can close this. We can create a new project. Element graph. No? It should show here, right? There should be like the user-defined templates. Why isn't it there? It worked yesterday. I don't know. InstaMAT. InstaMAT. I guess I'll just try to restart. Let's close all of these. Let's close my triangle basics, and let's just let me just do a few things here. Mhm. Okay, there is some problem with the library. We eared. Let me just figure it out real quick for you guys. Again, if there are any questions, please post them. Okay, file, new project, element graph. Nope, I don't know what's happening. Doesn't matter. Let me just start streaming again. Okay, so I guess we can't use the template, which sucks. Can we just drag it in? No, it drags it in as a project, huh? Eh. Sorry, no idea what happens there, but that's fine. We can set it up from scratch. So let's just create a belly noise as usual as our sort of test input for now. Can you see? No, you can't see. Now you can see. Okay. I'm sorry, I'm a bit new at this OBS stuff. I forgot to press the transition button. Anyhow, so we have the palette noise. That's going to be our like input layer. So if you go into search spacebar, or if you just drag and type reroute image, it's going to create this node from which you can like continue dragging your connections, which is very useful because here we are going to have all these alphas instead of the Berlin noise. So yeah, I think I'm gonna have to use some blurring. Let's set it to, I don't know, 2% for now. Let's say we would like to, maybe before that, we would like to anti-alias. Maybe it should come after that. I haven't figured it out yet. Maybe it's better to, yeah, it actually makes more sense if it comes after. I'm going to change it in my other projects too. We will also want to probably add the histogram edit. Yeah, these are like your master controls. And here we are going to start specifying our outputs. Yeah, so let's say we want height. So expose height as graph. And here we have our first output. Yeah, so if I go into my preview, it's already displacing it, right? If I didn't have this, it's just our little cube as usual. And yeah, you can see how it works. So height. We also want our normals, so let's get height to normal. And from that, we are going to drag another one and just call it normal. And it already suggests, you know, like this is going to be a normal output, so let's have it. It added the normals. We can also get ambient occlusion, height to ambient occlusion, and just set it. This is a bit funky. It doesn't know how to do this, so it just used this as the base color, right? In this case, grayscale. But if you go here and rename it ambient, it's already suggesting the right sort of keyword for it. So just click ambient occlusion, enter, and maybe we regenerate preview. Just do we have AO now? It still remembers that. Height. Yeah, it still remembers that. But I think if we set this as our preview as 3D material, it's going to show just the displacement plus the AO, right? So if we just turn off the AO, does it work? Strength? No. Mask? No, 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 no. Okay, if we delete this. Oh, I didn't have that. Sorry, my bad. So basically, I wasn't in the material preview. I was previewing the base color, if I'm not mistaken. So we can set this as what am I doing? Now if we turn off the strength, yeah, now it works, right? Now I'm turning on and off the AO. That's right. So let's say that's the basic setup. I'm not setting up anything for the user yet. I'm just interested in having the basic outputs finished. For that, we also need a mask. I'm not going to use the histogram edit because that would also affect the mask. In fact, you probably want to get maybe even the pre-blurred input for the mask. I think the blur adds a little bit of a sort of edge, a sort of a transition, which might look good for the stamp. So I leave that like 2% blur in, so that there isn't that like S-sharp transition. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to name this the mask, expose mask, right? All right, so instead of Berlin noise, we are going to use a box. Yeah, we're going to use a grayscale box. I'm going to plug it in. And we have boxes. I should also be using a plane. So if you click here, I think, here, load mesh, Control T, you can use some of the presets, or you can, get your own. For example, I think it would be nice if we had like an shading tester sort of object here. I don't know if there is something like that, like a material, like, when you, for example, when you have the sphere from the substance, right? It would be nice to use because it shows how all the curvature and all the ambient occlusion interacts with the object. So that would be nice, but not necessary by any means. You can always just import your own, right? So let's just use plane. By the way, a few settings I recommend if you go into this gear here, right? Like a displacement factor and tessellation level. Tessellation level means how subdivided the object is going to be for the displacement, for the height displacement, and displacement factor by how much. This is pretty high, to be honest. I do that because I was testing something else, different bevel profiles. You can always adjust how much you want the mesh to displace. Essentially, how that works, right? You have a white is 1, black is 0, and 0 means don't displace this at all. 1 means displace it to the full extent of this factor. Which reminds me, we should probably normalize this by using auto levels at the beginning, right? Just to be sure that we are using the full range of the grayscale input that we are going to have, of the grayscale gradient input. Right now it's just 2 colors, but soon we are going to be starting to add like bevels and stuff. You can do that. So you can always edit it in the histogram later, right? Like let's say you don't want it to be as high, you can just play with the levels here. But going in, I want to use the whole 0 to 1 linear range. All right, so we have a box. Let's go to the preview. Whoops, to preview. We can also not this one. This is what annoys me, right? Like when you use this shape generator node, by the way, this is a shape generator. You can also just load individual shapes, right? This is the shape generator. If you double click a node, at least that's how I have it set up, it should open it in a graph editor. Sorry, it should preview it and not open it in a graph editor. But for the shapes, for some reason, it always opens the node, right? It's a weird behavior. Shape generator doesn't do it, but Box does it. So yeah, I don't know what it is about, but probably a bug. So we have a bug. So we have a box and also a bug. Now, thinking about all the alphas, you should probably think about your general shape a little bit. Of course, you can transform it later, but you probably want to be using the same size for all your variations, right? So I'm just going to use the default box, that's 75.75. And my first idea would be to, I don't know, let's just cut the inside off, right? So for that, we can also just do it by the stroke width, right? Like let's set it up like this. And we have a basic frame. We could now bevel it, right? If you drag, you can add a bevel. I also set up, and that's also very powerful, when you go to preferences, shortcuts, and you scroll to canvas, and favorites, for example, you see that I have some of the some of my favorite nodes set up to be called by the F functions, which is a very quick way of working. I wish it would work with dragging and pressing F1, F2, F3. It doesn't work. You have to type it. So there is always this consideration. If I press F2, which should be my transform node, I switch it into grayscale, and now I have to reconnect it, right? That it would be nice if I could drag and press the shortcut, the hotkey, and it would automatically find it here. But I understand it may be difficult. So yeah, let's just bevel it. bevel it a little bit. And unfortunately, the preview here, you would either have to do this, right? Or you would like to go maybe, sorry, losing my voice here. No, just press M. No, what's going on again? I don't know. Ah, now it works. Pressing M will reset the viewport basically. So we have to sort of connect it into the input. Now we see the bevel result. That's too high. Let's just go lower, maybe a little slanted. We could also increase the softness, especially with like rounded shapes, which a square is not, obviously. Adding a bit of softness really helps alleviating all the artifacts that are like created from the tessellation by the tessellation. So yeah, that's that. Now let's that could be our first shape. You know, very simple alpha. I'm going to reduce the tessellation a little bit. It's kind of crazy for an alpha. We are not making a whole model, so let's just stick to 3 maybe. Yeah, that's much better. What about cutting out some cross, right? Let's Google for cross. Cross. We wanted grayscale. I guess I don't need any roundness. Even if I wanted, I could use it, right? We could specify how thick it is. I think something like that. And then I would like to blend it together, and I would like to subtract this one from this one. Subtract, and now we have another version, etc. So you can see like this goes really fast. Like you can create hundreds of alphas like this. And the nice thing is, because it's going to be a brush in layering, users will be able to combine them. So that again like adds another level of creativity that you can employ in your projects. All right, let's keep going. What would be nice? I don't know. Let me pull up some reference. Okay, I found these online. For example, these shapes could be nice. Oh yeah, we can like create little squares in the corners. We could also create something like this. Yeah, so this already is pretty customizable. You could like say, you know, let's create 4 different I don't know, 4 different squares. One is rounded, one is a bit I don't know, angular, and you can then say, do I want the base or not, right? And you can just create a condition for that. It's easy. It's really easy. Yeah, let's create this maybe, and yeah, let's create this one, right? That's an interesting one. So let's use. Maybe we don't need this bevel yet. We can bevel later. That's what I said about planning, right? So let's take this output, and we are going to be blending it with another box, I think. That box will be maybe very high, sorry, very high, like so. And then we are going to use a circular scatter node. It's another one of those super powerful nodes. It's a bit strange when you open it the first time, but it's really lovely. So what do we want to do? First of all, I think as it's a good practice to set this to additive, right? So that there is no, if I don't, and I increase the size of my shapes here so that they start intersecting. You see that it creates these like black lines. If you change this to additive, which is going to basically change it into the add mode or like screen mode in Blend, it's going to remove them, right? Anyhow, so we set it into additive. I don't want any of those rings, so only one ring count is fine. And the position, that's the radius. Yes, that's what we want. We only want 4 of those. That's right. And we want to align it. So I think it's orientation. We don't want any randomness to our orientation, but we want to do the ring alignment. And we have a crosshair, which is already what we need. And we just need to rotate it by 45 degrees, which is in the rings. Here we need to rotate it by 45 degrees, and we can now subtract it. Now, there is this swap input parameters quick action, and if you have this, I have it set to X, right? You can set, when you select the node blend, you go to edit preferences, your shortcuts, and you go all the way down. It will open this like conditional or like context dependent dialog for these quick actions, and you can specify the shortcut, right? So X basically switches the input and the output, right? I also forgot to to switch the blending mode to subtract, and we need to find the sweet spot for this. So let's do this. Let's see, oops. Ah, here we go. Oh, already it's a nice alpha. Maybe we can create another version, or maybe we could like expose the parameter here for this one, so that it so that the user will be able to change the size of this sort of cutout. So we do it here. I want it to be a bit thicker and a bit longer, and here we go. We have another version. So now that we have 3 of them, we probably want to start creating our catalog, right? So let's just go for enum select image. That's the one. We want to specify our, let's say, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. We also want to say it to grayscale, and we want to expose the let's use it here, the case, and we can call this the, I don't know, shape variant, or maybe shape selection or something like that, right? Like that's up to you. And we start plugging in our little designs. Okay. And now if I connect it here, now we have shape 1, shape 2, shape 3. Okay, control, hover above the menu, and we can just scroll through them. And that's super fast. And again, like imagine the user like just holding control, scrolling through all the shapes that he wants to use, and just like selecting the one, you know, using it right away. That's a very efficient way of working for him as well. So yeah, that's the one. Now, let's say we wanted to add the base. So I'm going to take this box. I'm going to make it fully white, and I guess how do we do this? Yeah, I guess I can just already like lower the setting here. Again, I like to have like every change should be documented by a node. I know it's probably computationally not the best, but for me and for such a small project, it's easier to just maybe add the levels here, right? I also have it on F5, so you can like see how like F1 is blend, F2 is transform, F3 is invert, F4 should be blur. No, F4 isn't anything, I guess. Weird. F5, F6 curves. So F4 got overwritten for some reason. That happens. Well, I can fix that right away. We can go to our favorites. F4, it's here. Why? Okay. Oh, but now it wants me to restart. Let's not do that. So levels, and let's say I want the displacement to be maxed out at 50%, right? Now, I would like to be able to choose whether I want to add this, 50% height displacement or not. So for that, we need a conditional node. Okay, conditional select image in this case. Again, we are working in grayscale. Now, how do we do that, right? So we want this and this to be combined together. So I'm just going to use a blend node, and I want this is going to be my, in fact, this is going to be my background. This is going to be my foreground, and I want this to be set to, I don't know, maximum. Yeah. So if we preview that, it did exactly what we wanted it to. It added sort of a base to it. Right. Now, we want to set up a condition for this. The condition being called base. Unfortunately, we can't use question marks and stuff like that. So you can only say like base or maybe add base, something like that. Yeah. So if true, we want to use this image. Whoops. If false, we just want to use our original shape, and that's it. Yeah. So if we've written an if statement essentially, and yeah, it's very easy. Now I can just whoops, switch it on and off. That's how it goes. And of course, I would recommend maybe beveling the shape here. What we can do, we can take this by holding Control and dragging it. You can sort of reroute that. We could like, go lower. We may have to adjust for this base. In this case, it's actually not bad. It is like sort of offset a little bit. Uh, you can play with the settings every time, right? Like we could go outwards. That's going to give it a bit of a like a detail here. Again, like you could expose this to the user, and he's going to be able to decide for himself. So nice stuff. And we could go on. Yeah. So I think that's the basics of like graph creation, exposing parameters, categorization. Unfortunately, I don't know why the template doesn't work. I'll have to look into that. It might be just some typo somewhere. It happens all the time. And we also created categories for our sort of exposed parameters. So we can say, I don't know, booleans or bools. Yeah, and we created a bools menu here, so we can even isolate that. The possibilities are endless. There are people who create some amazing stuff. There's this one guy called Angel on Discord, of course, and he makes some amazing like cloths, right? And he has a huge library of different versions, and he uses like this powerful conditional selection, he puts it to great use. I'm really impressed with that. Of course, what I do is just very basic and not necessarily even beautiful or anything. It's just an experiment, how I try to sort of approach or learn InstaMAT. I've got other ideas outside of alphas. I started making a curves profile sort of database or atlas, if you will. So what do I mean by that? Let me just create, I don't know, a rounded box. Let's make it grayscale, and let's just bevel it by a lot. Yeah. We can put it into our output so that we can see. Maybe that's too much, right? And let's also increase the tessellation again. Right, so if you plug in curves here, you can play with the profiles. And you can create some intricate bevels, right? The UI on the curves is a bit funny. I am not too happy about that. But like, it's not too bad. You can get used to it and create some interesting shapes. I don't know if this is an interesting shape. This is actually quite ugly, but what can you do, right? And you can create that, and you can imagine if you have like a complex, I don't know, trim sheet or something, and like you can add that little bit of detail with the curves like this, right? We can also make these sharp. We can maybe, which one is that? Make it a cusp so that the noodles are like split. The noodles, the Bezier handlers. Oh my God, noodles. I'm hungry. Yeah, so that's it. That's so I'm basically toying around with like creating all sorts of bevels from real world, like your skirting and your you know, typical like different like I don't know, smoothing and stuff like that, which could also be a database like this. You know, let's have you have like 20 profiles in one node. You can just quickly scroll through them, see what looks good. apply that to your your height map or something. That's one idea. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with GS placement. It was a project, like a personal project of some guy a while back, where he created a sort of procedural. Actually, I can show you. I think I have it somewhere. GS placement, right? Yeah, can you see? Hopefully, you can see. So he created a displacement map generator, right, where you can customize um, your sprites. Yeah, you can say how often they appear. You can say how bright they are, how many iterations there are, how many times it repeats. So this would probably use the um, NPass graph to create this, but it should be very much possible in InstaMAT to create something like this. And so yeah, you could have like a displacement map generator that you could maybe sell or give to users to create, I don't know, sci-fi plating. Yeah, it should be very easy actually. It's just maybe a little time consuming to create this, but we can definitely make that in InstaMAT. In fact, InstaMAT is a tool for creating these kinds of maps. Yeah, so just use some scattering node, define the angles, define the shapes, the sprites, and after that, just maybe expose some of the parameters. And basically, what you get is this menu right here, right, and the inputs right here. It's very simple. So we could do that. Yeah, so that's just a few projects I would like to make, in the following months. I also have the models I had mentioned last stream. I'm going to get back to it maybe at the weekend. So that's it. Again, if there's any questions, anyone watching, actually, I don't think anyone's watching, but yeah, maybe when you watch this, if you watch this later on, you can just hit me in the chat, and I'll try to answer. Okay then, so this was the tool creation in InstaMAT. Uh, Basics, of course. I imagine a lot of the people in InstaMAT and Discord are much more advanced, much more familiar with this kind of workflow. Uh, so if you happen to be from outside the Discord channel, just drop in into the InstaMAT official channel. There's always something going on, and the devs are really helpful, and others as well, I have to say. You also always get an answer to your question. It is new software, there isn't much out there, so I'm hoping to contribute this way. Anyway, I'll see you later. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.